smoky clubs to fields of green, her life took a turn, but her rhythm's still the same. Feel the passion burn. On stage she was a queen, now the land's her throne. Every note she sang now echoes in seeds she's sown. Her journey's just begun, a new chapter in her song. Watch her dance with the seasons, right where she belongs. She was a jazz and blues singer, making her way around the world. The journey stopped, but the song did not. So what's going on with you, girl? She started a YouTube channel and learned how to grow veggies, fruits, and bread, and a bunch of chickens in a row. Diva of the stage to diva in the dirt. Same diva, new life, diva in the dirt. Singing sweet melodies now with the earth. From city lights to moonlit nights, she's found her worth. With every seed she plants, a new story grows. From the mic to the soil, a rhythm she knows. Diva in the dirt, watch her thrive and gleam. Same passion, new dreams on the homestead scene.
Oops, gotta get rid of that. Where is my, hi, welcome, welcome. I'm in a brand 2 that it says, and I didn't turn off the welcome sign, but welcome to all of you this evening. Good to see you here. I am still away from home and up at my mom's. I'm here for a few more days before I travel back. And so I'm very excited about this evening, doing an interview with Jevan and Anna. And Anna, she's had a very busy day. You know, she's hoping to join us a little bit later. But I'll let Jevan tell you about that, which also, by the way, Jevan's name is also Rob. You know, he kind of goes between the two. So he'll answer to both, I'm pretty sure. But let me just say a quick hello to a few people that are here in the chat. Of course, the Energizer Bunny, Miss Sharon, who is also part of the Diva in the Dirt Club, saying hello, hello. And she is an amazing moderator. And so she is one of my mods. And of course, my Renaissance Grandma, thank you so much for coming in. And for where I'm at, it is very, very cold up here in, well, it's not really cold. It's not that bad. But, you know, for me, coming from Vancouver Island, it is very chilly here. And mornings are pretty frosty, but then the sun is beautiful. And I'm in about central British Columbia. Like if you look at, you know, my province, you know, like this, I'm about in the middle, where normally I'm way at the bottom below the American and Canadian border. So anyway, but Jevan's channel is called A Bee for All Seasons. And, you know, one of my goals, you know, he came up, what was it, a few weeks back, or maybe about a month ago, came up and started telling us about his beekeeping. And it was so fascinating. And I'm looking at his channel, and he's got over 900 subscribers. He's only been going for about 1.5 years, which is so remarkable. And I just thought, you know, let's get a few more people to know who he is and his channel, so that we can all support him and also get to know more about bees and whatnot. So thank you, Miss Sharon, again, for putting up A Bee for All Seasons. What is it called? Channel name? It was like, bing, it left my brain. So anyway, without further ado, I am going to bring up Jevan to the stage. So welcome, welcome.
Hello, hello. Thank you very much for having me.
It is wonderful to have you. So I do want to make sure, do you have the, can you see the comments on the side, on the right-hand side?
Yes.
Okay, good.
I will join. Yeah, so I can see the comments.
Okay, and can you post a comment at the bottom? Sometimes you can. I don't
think I have to connect to comment.
Okay. So
see.
yeah,
So it's
we can just right. But
Okay.
I think they make you log in with something. I'm not sure. There's parts of it that I don't actually totally understand. Sometimes it works.
Okay.
Excellent.
I believe I'm connected.
Yes, you are. That there you are right there. So then you actually can also respond into the chat as well. And I'm just going to welcome in Storms, Radios, and Cats with the Storms. That's how he and we always greet each other. He yells out Diva. He's yelling to Diva to, the west coast of Canada, and I'm yelling out to Kentucky Storms. And we usually do hear each other. So, hang on one second. I just need to decline this. There we go. Sorry about that. I hope I'm still connected. I am. Hopefully he will not call me again. It's my friend's son who has some disabilities, and he loves to chat with me. And I think he found out that I'm here, so he wanted to chat. And also, yeah, he's right. And I just want to welcome Homestead Aquarius. Thank you so much for coming in, sir. I really do appreciate it. So most of you are all over on the West Coast. There's a lot of you. There's very few that are over here with me in the West. And you're on the East, sorry. I'm on the West. Yeah. And so I know it's very late for you. So I want us to get right into these questions that I have for you to answer. And at any moment, if it seems like it's too personal, you are allowed to say, I will pass on that one.
Sounds good.
There's no personal questions.
So most of the people then are on the West Coast, not many East Coasters?
No, most of you are on the East. You're either
Central.
Everybody is at your time zone. I'm the one that still has, I don't know if you can see, I still have daylight.
Ah. Well, the days are getting longer, so that's what matters.
That's true. That's very, very true. So let me just go over here to my banners. And so I wanted to start with beekeeping and business beginnings. So so I want to ask you, what inspired you to start A Bee for All Seasons, and how did your beekeeping journey begin?
So I started beekeeping. It was I'm going on 10 years now, and I was not planning on starting beekeeping. My father-in-law, he was a beekeeper for many years. He grew up in Kazakhstan, and his father was a beekeeper. He came from a long line of beekeepers, and so he when he came to Canada in the early 90s. He started beekeeping as soon as he could. And so he showed up. It was my birthday. I've got a May birthday. And he just showed up into my backyard and said, here's your present. It's a hive of bees. And so that I wasn't planning on becoming a beekeeper, but it was gifted. And I can tell you, once you get started and once you get a taste for the honey and just you start just watching and observing and listening and all the aspects of beekeeping. It's very addictive. You get into it, and it's kind of like people who keep chickens talk about chicken math, where you keep adding more and more chickens, and you feel that. And I think it's for myself, that's been the case with bees, where you start with one, and then next thing you know, you're like, I've got over 100. It just kind of just happens. You're not sure how it happens, but it happens. So.
But when you think about it, beekeeping is in your blood.
Yeah, absolutely.
It seems like it was just a natural thing for you to be doing. That's fascinating. And so, if my father came home and said, "Here, Maureen, I'm giving you some bees," I'd go, "What do I do with them?" And I wouldn't be able to know how to take care of bees or even want to.
And I think as part of it, so I've been watching YouTube videos to learn. If you want to learn something, you just watch YouTube videos.
Absolutely.
And so that was really, my father-in-law gave me some initial instruction. I just read a whole bunch and watched a whole bunch of YouTube videos, and then really just getting into the hives and learning what's what. And that's really how I started. And so the reason I started the channel, and again, it's about 1.5 years ago, about a couple years ago, my wife and I decided You know what? Like, contracting has been very good for us. So we're a single income family, and so I run a construction contracting business. But we really wanted to have something that was, more at home, and that my wife and the kids could be involved in.
Right.
And so that's really what drew us to seeing if we could turn the beekeeping and the gardening, which at that point for the past 15 years, 10 years had just been hobbies,
Right.
see if we could turn that into more of a career and supplement. And so we're not there yet. I'm still involved in contracting, but we're making some strides. So
Yeah, but yeah, because that's the thing, is that something has to pay the bills, and
that's right.
Right. So, so I do want to ask you, what, with the heart of beekeeping, what do you love most about working with the bees, and what has surprised you the most along the way?
I think what really initially, so anyone who kind of runs a construction, so I built things. I do, in the winter I do interior renovations, and generally in the summer I do exterior, so I do roofing projects, siding, framing projects. And I've been managing people and managing projects, and it's very hard sometimes, just in part of daily life in construction is just the frustration of getting people, managing people. It feels like construction workers, it's just like herding cats.
Yes.
And so when you open the hive and you go in and you see, they say busy like a bee, but you see just the amazing intricacies of the comb, and how efficiently and incredibly they work in unison. Every little part, every bee is doing their part, and they're able to construct something that's just so beautiful and incredible. That's really what drew me in initially. Is just like I put in an empty frame there a couple days ago, and now they've built this comb on it, and it's full of honey. Like, how do these little insects do that? It just seems impossible, right?
Yeah. I do feel, that way with many things in regards to homesteading, even with my chickens. And like when I bring home a baby chick, it's a day old, I can put 2 of them in my hands, and like you can pick it up in the morning and see the little wing. And then at about 5 o'clock, if you come and see it, where the wing was, there is the next, it's like it grew that much, like what my fingers are showing. And you go,
oh, I know. I wanted to, we do chickens, and I've wanted to do like a time lapse, just watching these chicks grow, especially meat chicks. Like, it's almost like by the minute you're just watching these things.
Yeah, like you could,
right?
just on how much they change. And it just shows you the beauty of God's creation, because it's not like you had to go get the bees and say, hey, so I want you to be the queen, you go over here, and you people, I need you to go over there and do that. And you, like, it's instinctive, it's all natural in them, and it's so amazing.
Yeah, well, and I think for it really all fits together so well. Of course, a lot's been said, and people understand the importance of bees for our food supply. And of course, you look at going right back, it was Moses was sending the people into the land flowing of milk and honey, right?
Right,
and so
right.
humans have always had this relationship with bees because God gave them to us for our benefit, right?
100%.
So they're for our benefit, and they're for our use. And I think that they're like, it's kind of like, so I gave like a talk to some school children at about a year ago, and I'd grown a field of carrots, and the enthusiasm, these kids were just like pulling the carrots out of the ground, and they, like, if they had known that was just fresh manure like 6 months ago, they don't care to eat it. But there's something just visceral and something natural about getting your hands dirty and being able to grow your own things. And beekeeping, I think, is another, just seeing another part when you're tasting the honey, and then you see, like, that's, the bees are, they're taking this nectar and they're pollinating, and then they're creating this thing that's completely independent of all of that. And it's pretty
just
amazing, right? Yeah.
It's mind-blowing.
Yeah.
So you have mentioned about scaling up. So you've been gardening and keeping bees for years, which when I look at photos of you and Anna, you don't look like you have many years behind you. Like you don't look that old, either of you. But you're turning it into a business, and that is a huge step, of course. So what sparked this decision to scale up and start selling honey? And of course, I know you also are selling flowers.
Yeah, so there's a couple reasons on the business side of things. The challenge of running a construction business, and I've been doing this now for 18 years.
Again, you don't look old enough to have an 18-year business behind you.
Well, I appreciate that, but the challenge is if you do a job and you complete a job, that job's done,
Right.
and then you have to go find another job.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
you get referrals, and it's the same with people. So I get a young guy out of university, I train them, you pour the time into the training them, and they're working for you and everything's going well, and then they're like, I'm gone. Right. And then you're doing that. And so
you got to do it again.
It was about 5 years ago. I just, a couple guys who had been with me for quite a number of years decided, you know what, I'm tired of construction. I'm moving into something else. And I just kind of threw in the towel and decided I'm going to scale this back. And I'd like to start building a business that is actually scalable without having to always be dependent on other laborers, because
Employees.
that's really the hard part with construction, and something where I can get repeat customers. That's the other thing is, if you're doing construction and roofing and this thing, you don't want to see your clients again, because that means you've screwed the job up, right?
Exactly.
So you have great clients and you complete your jobs well, and then if everything goes well, you never see the people again, right? Whereas we're finding the honey and the flowers, they go very well together. And we started last year was the first year we did pick your own, and we had some people driving quite a distance, and we had a number of people who were same every week, right?
Wow.
And so we're able to offer them a place that they can come and they can enjoy. Like, you're getting fresh bouquets, they're spending time smelling flowers, touring around, taking their time, and it's a place they enjoy because they can see beautiful flowers. They can I'll show them, give them fresh honey. And so we feel good about it because we're able to build a business where we're getting recurring clients, so I don't always have to hunt for new clients, and we're able to provide a beautiful space for people to enjoy as well. Right?
Yeah. You drive out to go and have like just a little taste of fresh air and country life, and then you get to come home with flowers and honey. So
yeah, the number of people who we're about 40, 45, maybe 50 minutes northwest of Toronto, and we would have people come from condos in Toronto who we just want to get out of the city, right?
Yeah.
You can come to your garden and spend some time. That's just wonderful. And
that's fabulous.
So yeah, and it's providing an opportunity. So we feel good about it, and we're excited about. So we had last year we had about 18. I think we had 18 rows that were 45-foot long rows, and so this year we're going to have about 50 rows that will be 50 feet long.
Wow!
So it's going to be quite an expansion of the garden, and last year we had about 100 varieties of dahlias. We had zinnias, we had dahlias, we had ranunculus, cosmos, a bunch of annuals, and some iris, and so we're going to have over 500 varieties of dahlia now.
Wow!
So we've reinvested everything we've made back in. So the ideas, and I've learned a lot about it, because the dahlia world, kind of this subculture in flowers, is there's always there's people hunting for what they call the unicorns, right? So
Right.
you know,
Right.
so we'll have most of them now.
Right.
But our
Let
goal
me,
is, to build a garden that people can come and enjoy and pick
mhm.
flowers and have a good time. So
Yeah. Yeah. So let me just do a quick say hello to Pastor McQuaddy because she just came in. And also Homestead Aquarius says honey flows faster with repeat
and yes,
business.
we did do sunflowers. I think we did marigolds, but I'm not sure. But we did do a couple rows of sunflowers, and I will be doing more sunflowers.
Yes.
Probably staggering them as well. So we'll start planting. We'll start initially planting in mid-May, and I'll keep planting probably until the end of July. So we'll just keep getting more sunflowers.
Going.
Because
Yeah.
the sunflowers are an awesome source of pollen
Yes.
and nectar for the bees as well.
Exactly. And so I do want to welcome Gear Gridden 19. Yeah, his favorite is marigolds, and he also loves the zinnias. I do know that as well. So let's keep going on. So the world of beekeeping, because this is what people really like. This is what was so fascinating with you joining into the live the other week. So sustainable beekeeping. So many people don't realize how much care goes into keeping bees, keeping them healthy. What are some key sustainable practices that you follow in your apiary?
So I think there's certain things that you have control over in any apiary, and then there's certain things that you don't have control over. And so let me explain that. So I think the most important thing for every beekeeper is you need to always be monitoring the health of your hive. And so you need to keep an eye out for any disease. You need to keep a check on what's called the varroa mite. So in the world of bees, diseases are spread by a parasitic mite. So the mite is the primary vector of disease. And so you need to make sure that your levels of mites stay below a threshold. Otherwise, your hives will get very sick, and that sickness will then spread to all the neighboring hives. And so I say this because there's really, like, if you keep a hive of bees on your property and 5 kilometers down the road, another person has bees on their property. If that neighbor doesn't keep healthy bees, so they don't keep tabs on the health of their hive, then your bees will be vulnerable to any sickness that those bees get, right?
Right.
And so that's been a problem, and that's kind of the recurring theme of beekeepers across really most of the world for the past 40 years is managing this mite that is the vector for all sorts of diseases. And anyway, so there were 2 places on Earth up to a few years ago that didn't have these mites. And so they didn't have these diseases. One of them was Australia, and the other was Newfoundland. And so now Australia now has this mite. And so the last place on Earth that doesn't have the mite is actually Newfoundland. So yeah, and so long story short, if you just 50 years ago, you could just keep a box of bees in your yard, and those bees would survive several years. Nothing would kill them unless a bear came and knocked them
Wiped
over.
them out. Yeah.
Now, if you don't treat your bees and keep them healthy and ensure they're healthy, they won't survive a season. They'll be dead in one season. You'll have no bees, and
that's just been in the last 50 years.
That's been in Canada, really since the mid-90s. It's been this way, and so there's a lot of debate within the beekeeping world of how to manage this, and a lot of disagreement. But so one kind of way of thinking that people have thought is they thought, well, we need to breed bees that are better at fighting off these mites themselves. And so people have been trying this for, about 30 years now, trying to breed this perfect bee. But, it hasn't worked as of yet. And
No,
so
no kidding.
then people rely on chemicals like pesticides to kill the bees. This poses a problem because the mites, like the pesticides that get sprayed on fields, the pests end up developing like a resistance to the pesticides, right? And so it's kind of put the beekeeping world at a point where no one quite, you get a lot of opinions, and everyone's kind of in the same boat, and it kind of sucks.
Yeah. So then do they, oh, just by the way, everybody, so Jevan is also in Canada. He is a Canadian like myself. And just so you know, Newfoundland is on the east coast of Canada. So that is where the mite is not. But so has anybody figured out how this mite even started?
So it actually started people believe it started in Russia. And so there's a breed of Asian honeybee that is in primarily Eurasia. So that would be the Stan countries and Eastern Russia. So that's the Eastern honeybee. And so in the early 1900s, people were trying to crossbreed the Eastern honeybee and the European honeybee. And this mite, which only existed on the Eastern honeybee, then successfully jumped to the Western European honeybee. And so, it was human intervention. And once it started spreading, it spread westward. And then generally the way these things go is there's a lot of importation, like bees move, all over, and people would import bees from Europe to America. And then once it's in a continent, they're just going to fly. It spreads very rapidly.
Right. All right. So, so that might is one beekeeping challenge. Is there another one that that you also have? What like?
Yeah, so I'd say there's so many factors in every season is really a different type of challenge. So right now, what I'd call like environmental factors, as the bees are getting ready for spring. So how I make money on bees is I sell bees. So I'll prepare what's called a nucleus hive. And so I feed the bees pollen, and I get them ready, and then I'll split the bees, and the bees will make new queens, and I'll sell those bees to other aspiring beekeepers or homesteaders or whoever. And so when the challenge this time of year is as that brood nest expands, if we get a real cold snap, then or you get some funky weather, then it's a lot of pressure on the bees, and sometimes they'll die. March is actually the hardest month to get your bees through sometimes, because especially in Ontario, like we had plus 20 Celsius 2 days ago. And right now it's about minus 12 Celsius. So, so that for the bees, that means they were out and about foraging, and then they're having to cluster in a big ball. And so what happens is if the queen was laying eggs in too wide of an area, and then the bees have to contract back into a smaller cluster, then all those eggs and all those larvae will be dead, and it's all just wasted resources. So that's kind of the spring challenge. In the summer, you always have to be aware of what farmers are spraying on their fields. So there's different herbicides and pesticides. So I have had one yard 5 years ago where a crop duster sprayed a herbicide that ended up wiping out 20 hives that I had. So that was that was quite painful. But usually that isn't typically a problem, but in some areas where you have a lot of crop, especially like things like corn that get a lot of crop dusting, spraying, it's a problem. So
right.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Let me just, I think I'll just, oh, I'm, so can you hear that hammering that's going on in the background here? Are you picking up the hammering?
I do hear a hammer.
Okay. Yeah. So the bathroom is beside me and it's getting a new floor.
Ah, no problem. That's okay.
So yes, the live stream channels, the bathroom is under construction right now. So here's an interesting comment from Carol. She says, I just read we don't have any bumblebees here as pollinators anymore in my area of South Florida, which makes sense. I've only seen them in Georgia and the Carolinas when visiting. So is that something that, is it the heat or is it?
Yeah, I'm not too familiar with what what would be going on in Florida. Every area is very different as far
Different,
as the
of course.
pollinators you'd see.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot being said that habitat loss and a lot of chemicals being sprayed have been hard on a lot of natural pollinators,
Mm-hmm.
bumblebees and butterflies especially. So it's not too surprising.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, because it is a challenge where you go, we're poisoning, the bees, and not intentionally, of course, but it's just going to happen that way. So
Yeah, well, it's sad because you have to wonder. So there was a study out of the University of Guelph that was studying one of these common, and it was deemed safe herbicides. This was a study. I could try to find it and post it later. It was, so some professors at Guelph University studied bumblebees and the effect that this common herbicide was having on them, and they found that they were just wiping out the bumblebee populations. And this
wow.
was supposed to be one of the safe herbicides. And
Right.
so, when authorities tell you something's safe, you really you have to take it
You go,
with a grain of salt.
I'll believe it when I see it, right?
Yeah.
Basically. So about harvesting honey. Can you walk us through a short version of the process of harvesting honey and share any tips to those who are wanting to try the small scale beekeeping?
Yeah. So if you probably the easiest way and the way that I enjoy the most would be what you have called cut comb honey. So typically when you have a frame of bees and a frame of wax comb, and those bees will fill that with nectar, and they'll honey is basically regurgitated nectar. So this process of they flap their wings and they regurgitate and regurgitate. Bees come and go and they spit it out, and that brings the moisture content of that nectar down just below 18%. So it's in that threshold where it will never spoil.
Right.
And once it reaches that perfect point, and the bees know when it is, without the tools, then they cover it over with wax, right? And so it's at that point when you have a frame of honey and it's completely covered over with wax that that is ready to harvest. And so the easiest way without equipment is you can just take a knife and you can cut out a piece of that, and you can eat it, or you can crush it into through a strainer, however you want to consume it. My son helps me in the yard, and almost every time I'm with the bees, he comes out and says, "Can you cut me off a piece of comb honey?" He's like, "Sure, here you go." And so he knows his honey quite well, and he's gotten a taste for the wax as well, because you can eat the wax. There's nothing harmful about it. So
Right.
yeah.
Right. Oh, that's very cool. I like. We cook with wax. Like I know with some of the cookies that we make, I'll melt wax and then I will roll them into it.
Yes.
So it gets that coating or whatever, right? So
how we enjoy honey, like you have it on the shelves. So about I guess he was about 130 years ago. He's called the father of modern beekeeping, a guy called Erwin Langstroth. And so the current hives that most beekeepers in North America would use would be the Langstroth hive. And so that's the hive with a removable frame.
mm-hmm.
And so those frames can be removed. And then with a knife, you remove that capping, and then you place the the frame into what's called a centrifuge, and then that centrifuge spins. The honey comes out of the frame, into your bucket, and then you put the frame back, and the bees will fill that frame right back up with honey for you. And so that is how 99% of the honey that you see on the shelves or in farm markets, that would be how beekeepers prepare it.
Right. That's interesting. I know a few. I'm not going to be able to say how it was, but it was this thing where they were selling a what was it? Like it was the frames, but however it was set up, it was where they would have a spigot at the end, and it's like, is that something that actually works, where you don't actually have to remove them all?
Yeah, so that's a kind of a newer innovation, and it's I can't remember the name. I don't have one of those hives, but basically the honey is stored, of course, in a hexagon. So every frame is a little hexagon. And so the way these are designed is you flip a little knob, and then that hexagon will actually break open, and then the honey will flow backwards into a little reservoir, and then it'll come out as a spigot. So it's a really good design for people who don't want to make the investment into all the equipment. So yeah, if you have a backyard and you want to just have people don't realize like how much honey, if you have a good area for honey, like you can get over 100 pounds of honey per hive quite easily. And so you think like how long does it take one person to consume 100 pounds? Like that's a lot of honey, but that's that's kind of average. Like if you're doing a good job and you're in a good area, you'd get roughly like 100 pounds of honey per hive. So
wow, that's awesome. That is, and whatever that was, whether it was called a flow hive, like Carol said.
That's it. That's the flow hive. So
yeah, that would be something I could do.
Yeah.
Because it's like I want less involvement of.
Yes.
So let's talk about misconceptions. So misconceptions of bees. There's a lot of misinformation out there. What's one of myth about beekeeping or honey production that you'd like to debunk right now?
So I think it's kind of hard. So I was at Costco, and there's a lot of kind of debate between beekeepers, with like it's very hard to make a living selling honey. Because there's so much downward pressure, because at least in my area, there's a lot of people keeping bees, and you have a lot of imported honey. So in Canada, I don't know about the US, but in Canada, there's no regulation and there's no tariffs on foreign honey. And so I was at Costco. Let me just grab this. So this is Turkish honey that I bought from Costco, and it has inside actually some comb as well.
Right.
And this is a kilogram, and this was $9 at Costco. And so, I saw that and I'm like, that's like, most beekeepers in my area would sell a piece of comb honey would be about $8, and a kilogram of honey is about $20.
Right. I was going to say, I pay for a jar that size at least $20.
And so the kind of the biggest issue right now is like for people who are trying to make a living on honey, and you have honey imports that are, really, so it's basically the way it works is a food packing company. They make their money repackaging. So they buy huge containers, and maybe it's adulterated honey. You just don't know. So there's a lot of beekeepers will say like that's could be some fake honey, and that kind of gets thrown. It's hard to prove. Like maybe it's possible that there's some sugar water or some corn syrup or whatever, or rice syrup in there. And of course,
Mm-hmm.
that would make it a lot cheaper, and it would make it more profitable for the packaging company. And it's very
Mm-hmm.
hard to prove, right? And so there's a lack of regulation, and in Canada, like a lot of confusion around labeling laws. And so local beekeepers are at a disadvantage, because you can't compete with like food packaging companies buying from the cheapest market possible. You don't
Yeah.
even know if it's real honey,
Right.
and then importing it and selling it, at below market prices in Costco, right?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
so that would be kind of the biggest challenge. And how that would be a misconception. I guess the question is, are you comparing apples to apples, or is it apples to oranges, right?
Right. Right.
Is it honey, or is it a honey product, right?
Exactly. And that's where, your best thing to do is to get, become friends with a local beekeeper that and that's where you
Yeah,
get your honey. And, yes, pay the extra for it, because everything that's in it, and how it was it was like, how it's raised. That's how I think about with, chickens and vegetables when I grow them.
yeah,
It's like I know everything about it. And so I can trust, my local beekeeper. Plus, it's always best to buy the honey that's within, your own local area, because it's really great for people who have allergies and stuff like that.
yeah.
Go with, that sort of thing. So let's go on. So pollinators and gardening. So since I love gardening, I have to ask, what are some of the best plants or flowers to grow for attracting and supporting bees?
Yeah. So, it really, it really depends, of course, on the season. Like they'll go for any open flower that has
Mm-hmm.
pollen. They'll find it. Even corn, like they'll even get pollen off of corn, right? Um, we found that, like in the dahlia world, they really love the collarettes, like anything open faced, right? If you have an open faced flower,
Mm-hmm.
sunflowers, any colors, anemones, they really like. And my wife would be a lot better with this, but I think she might have. She was selling tubers all day at a market. She was 8 hours at a market, and so I was with the kids, and she was selling tubers. So she's spent. So I don't know. She might be out for the night, but
Okay, that's
that would
okay.
be a better question for her. But
Mm-hmm.
you know, anything that, especially open pollen flowers, you
Mm-hmm.
see, and we see it, and it's kind of shocking. So for a lot of people who, some people would come to our gardens, and I've got 60 hives in one side of my yard. So we're on a couple acres, and so one side of the property I have 60 hives, and then the other side of the property we have the garden. And especially during certain times of day, like there are literally like thousands and thousands of bees. they're
Mm-hmm.
just
I
they're
can
everywhere.
imagine.
And some people were like, "Whoa, is this safe?" And I'm like, "They're not after you. They're
They're
after the
looking
pollen. They're
for the
looking
pollen.
for
Yeah.
pollen, for nectar, right?"
Yeah, I know for in my own yard, I have what are California lilacs. There will be a beautiful swarm around them. I grow my marigolds are like they're quite a large flower. Again, it'll just be buzzing with them. Um, I love to see them on what's the other one? Can't think of it. It's a blanket flower, but gaillardia. But in some of those ones, what I love is that you'll just see a bee just like flop right onto it. It's like you can just see they're covered in the pollen, and they're just like, I'm just going to have a little break here in the gaillardia, and then I'm going to carry on. And it's very, very fascinating. Okay, so I am going to go because our next, this is kind of when I was hoping Anna would be joining us. So flowers and bees, a perfect partnership. And my next question was more for Anna.
She she could maybe come on another time when she hasn't been working all day.
Working all day, absolutely. So I totally understand. So bees and blooms. Have you noticed a difference in the flower quality or honey flavor because of what you grow with what you're growing with the flowers?
I
And
yeah, I think well pollinated flowers go pretty well. So this is something I've been thinking a lot about. So one thing in the flower world that we've done a fair bit of research on is we follow different hybridizers, and so Christine Albrecht, and there's different people in the dahlia world in particular who will, with a paintbrush, they'll paint one to another and then put an organza bag over it. So what we've got some different varieties that we're planning to crossbreed, and the way we're going to do it is I've got 6 different bee yards, and so everywhere where I'm going to plant, where I keep bees, we're going to actually plant flowers with the intention of hybridizing between the specific varieties. And
right,
so so we'll have in the dahlia world, there's little pom pom ones, right? Little, so we'll have a garden just of different varieties of the small pom pom, in the hopes that those the bees will do the work of pollinating,
yeah.
and then we can take those seeds once they go to seed, and next season hopefully have some desirable new varieties, right?
Mm. Okay, let me I'm just going to go into the chat because I can see it's kind of gotten a little bit busy. Oh, it's just backing up here. So Miss Sharon, she says she pays 25 to 28 for a quart jar of honey there. And
Wow.
welcome, Brenda. Thank you so much for coming in, Duncan 1900 Homestead. Oh, and Carol says, I bought honey with emulsified pollen in it, and it was $80 local.
Wow.
Oh
Wow.
my gosh. Wow. That is incredible. And oh, and I think you answered this. Tubers. What kind of tubers? And can you mail to the States? Which you also
Yeah, so
replied.
I'm not sure so there's a lot of red tape, and especially these days with the way the border's going. It's uh,
Well, and you just don't like. I was at Christmas time when we all went on. Canada went on strike, and so it's like I had things being shipped to me and shipped away, and it was all just suspended,
yeah,
for however many months,
yeah,
right? So it was pretty
it was a
brutal.
bit chaotic
Mm-hmm,
at the
mm-hmm,
worst time of year.
mm-hmm. Oh, and yes, that they love citrus, and of course they love clover. So
Yes, the clover is, so I'm next to some fields that are clover, and there's when the clover is giving nectar, one thing I really like about certain types of nectars, you can tell right away the source just from the smell.
right.
And clover is a really good one. I really enjoy clover honey as well.
Mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
it's certain times of year. So I don't know if you have goldenrod out in the West Coast,
Yep.
but they're the goldenrod and the asters are kind of the last things to come into bloom out here, and they stay in bloom basically until frost. And so when your bees are working the goldenrod, because your hive actually smells like gym socks. So it's actually really tasty honey,
Oh, I can imagine.
but it smells just awful. So,
Awful. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh,
and
welcome,
so
David Corey with Crop. Thank you so much for coming in, sir. Good to see you. Good to see you. And just want to make sure because David comes in and he says hello, hello. So yeah, I was
hello.
wondering too. Would goldenrod would be a great medicinal honey though?
Yeah,
Because I'm
so
thinking,
I've spoken to a woman came last year who was really into a lot of herbal remedies, and she was telling me all the uses of goldenrod, and
yes.
I couldn't believe how many things people do with goldenrod.
Mm-hmm.
I was like,
So
really, this stuff is like, people think of it as a weed, right? It gets mistaken as ragweed everywhere. It's like, it's not
yeah,
ragweed.
no, and it's
Um,
so
but
so
yeah,
healthy.
there are certain people who come to me and they ask, like, do you have this specific honey? So I get people asking, do you have buckwheat honey? Do you have goldenrod honey? Do you have,
Mhm.
blueberry honey? And I I don't, I'm not so advanced that I'm able to differentiate at this stage in my time, but I think there are different benefits if they're pulling the nectar and the pollen from a certain plant, then sure, I wouldn't see why.
But can you is that something that actually can be done? Like, how do you isolate that? You go, this is only honey
So
that.
the way it's really the process would start with knowing so when the crop, so let's say you want buckwheat honey, which is a
Mhm.
very dark, very rich, flavorful honey for those who enjoy it. Other people think it's awful, but I like it. But you'd need to time the blossom, time the bloom, such that right when they're going into bloom, uh, the bees have empty frames. So you
Ah,
need to make sure that the frames are empty, and then you need to pull those frames right when it's finished blooming, and then it's like that would be
that is
buckwheat honey.
buckwheat.
And buckwheat honey is one of the easier ones because it's such a dark honey. You can tell, like, that's buckwheat honey or that isn't.
Mhm.
And same, like, so blueberry honey, at least in Ontario, like, the blueberries flower quite early. And if you park your bees, right where a blueberry field is, and the blueberries are going into bloom, they're going to
Mhm.
be working the blueberries, right?
Right, right. So it's like you give them the pollen that you're wanting to create.
Yeah, so you
You know,
you need to put them in the location of the crop
that's
that
in
that
bloom right at
that you
that moment.
desire. So people do that with clover, people do that with
Right.
sunflowers, they do it with buckwheat,
Okay.
goldenrod, whatever, right?
Good.
Blueberries.
So how long does it take to fill up a frame?
So I have seen, so I have one hive in particular that I have a scale on in my main bead yard. So I have,
Hmm.
a scale hive, and one frame of honey is roughly about 5 pounds, like, sealed off.
Hmm.
And in a 24-hour period, the most honey that I've seen one hive bring in was about 7 pounds in a 24-hour period. um,
Wow.
which, if you think about it, like, that's, so that's like a whole frame of honey and then some.
Yes.
uh,
Yes.
so the like and at certain points a year, like, beekeepers have a choice. They can either, let their hives get very, very big, and so you
Hmm.
see these boxes stacked one on top of the other. I've had, I think my highest was 7 boxes I had stacked,
Wow.
and
Wow.
all full of honey. And so you can let your hives get very big and produce a lot of honey, or you can keep splitting your hives. If you want a honey crop, then you need a lot of bees, and you wouldn't be splitting your hives up to make more hives. You'd be letting the bees get very populated and producing honey. So,
Wow. Wow. That is fascinating. Really fascinating. So then you're selling your honey and you're also flying flowers. And I think, do you sell through subscriptions?
so we started last year. So we've been doing 3 years, dahlias, and last year we really scaled up, and we thought we would do subscriptions, and we did do some subscriptions, but we found pick your own, because we're pretty close to Orangeville, which is, population of about 50,000, and
Hmm.
we're still kind of in the Greater Toronto area.
Hmm.
And there's a lot. We didn't realize there aren't many, like, pick your own flower things. People do pick your own strawberries, pick your own apples,
Blueberries and
blueberries, but pick your own flowers is not really a thing. And so when we started
ooh.
marketing pick your own flowers, like, instantly, at any given time we had, like, in the morning. So generally we tell people you'd come, before 10 a.m. So usually from 8 to 10. So the idea is the flowers aren't dry, right? You want that moisture. And then in the evening, usually like after 7 p.m.
Right.
When, so morning and evening. And at some points we were getting, a dozen people a day.
Wow.
The first year, which totally caught us by surprise.
Because you're like, hopefully we'll have one or two,
Yeah.
and it's like,
and that led to some more, like we got to know the regulars, and it was very encouraging, and it really caught us by surprise just how quickly, and we realized, there's an opportunity, in at least in this market where people want flowers and they want fresh flowers and they want that experience, so we can provide that, right?
Would you guys be adding in, because you do the fresh, you pick flowers and then you also sell honey, right?
That's right.
But so do you sell bees more than you sell honey, or is it kind of equal?
So as far as like a revenue, I would sell more bees at this stage,
right,
for dollar than I would sell honey.
Okay.
I did find that I was selling more honey as people would come to pick flowers. We'd have the honey out there on a table, and they were happy to they're happy to buy honey as well as their bouquet of flowers, right?
And
So,
will you think about adding in other items that you could be selling?
so we're actually, I'm going to be constructing. I'm kind of in a debate right now whether I build at the end of our driveway. I'm thinking about building a small farm store. So kind of like maybe one of those 10 by 10 little cabins.
Yep.
So I might build one, or I might buy one from the Amish. So we have some Amish down the road, and they're fantastic people, and
Yes.
they build great little structures that, so I'll probably buy one from them, and turn that into a little pay the post market store. So the idea is we'd have a fridge in there that we could have ready-made bouquets. We'd find someone who has fresh eggs to sell, and some produce, the honey, maple syrup, all these things that, maybe we'd love, if you were out here, we'd love to have your sourdough bread. Finding someone that could procure some sourdough bread from, and all the things that people locally would like to have and support locally, right? So
Yes.
So
All
we're starting
community.
that up now. So
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. Let me just go. I just want to pass by that question, I think. So do you have, a favorite beekeeping or flower planting moment?
So I got into, so when my wife and I were married, we moved into a townhome back when people could get married and buy houses in this country. That maybe that's dating me. It's a long time ago now. So we were in a townhome, and one of the first things I did, I should maybe find a picture, is I built a greenhouse in the backyard, and people said, like, "Oh, you're crazy! Like, you've got shade everywhere. You're in a block of townhomes." But that wasn't stopping me, and I was able to produce a tremendous amount of tomatoes and cucumbers, and kind of those early years where I realized, hey, this is my space. I don't want to do something with it, and from there, we both really just got the love of gardening and the green thumb. And this would be back 2008, 2009. And then the next step forward would be in 2016. So I was at the time I was the warden of a small parish church down the road. And so we had a 5-acre lot. And so behind the church, we had this open lot of grass. And I thought, that's a great spot for a garden. And so, I got the pastor and the other wardens on board. Hey, could I start a community garden here? And so
Mm,
I was able to get a free greenhouse, like a big hoop house,
yeah.
and brought my friend's tractor out. And it was about like a 200-foot by about 50-foot garden and greenhouse, and it's still in use today.
Wow.
So that was kind of starting that really, really got me into gardening and kind of wanting to continue to, encourage others to garden and just find that, that joy that I found. Right.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So let me just grab some of these questions. So David says, do you sell your honey? Yes, he
Yeah,
does.
I do sell honey.
And then Carol said, honey for salve. Any thoughts on that?
What is salve?
Um, like a, a salve
Like
for heat. Yeah,
I
like a
yeah, I've heard about this. So a friend of mine actually, it kind of threw me off because I didn't know if he was serious or not. He's like, oh, I got a honey massage. I'm like, what are you talking about? A honey massage? He's like, oh, it's the best thing for your skin. Like, okay. But it's one of those things that once you get into it, you realize people have had a tremendous number of uses for it.
yes, it's just like the world is open up. So we could make this, we could make that.
Yeah, and going back in time, like even back, like Cleopatra was
Mm-hmm.
kind of working with bees and honey and bee venom, all these things. Like what we know about apiculture and bees is just a small little bit of what's available,
Right,
right?
right.
And we're just scratching the surface, like of our knowledge now. And I'm convinced that there are a lot of things that people had a lot better of a grasp on thousands of years ago than we do today. And I
Yes,
think and I
yes.
think probably bees are one component that you can look to and say people probably understood how this worked a lot better then than we
Then
do
that
today.
absolutely. Well, you go, how is it that, um, like little sidetrack is like when I was in Italy, and when you look at these statues, like the actual foot of the statue was probably about about 14, 15, 16 inches. So that's the base. And this is a carved piece of with the statue that nobody had, like, computer and a CAD program and whatever. This person carved it with instruments perfectly, and like it's a 30, 40 foot statue. How did they know how to do that? Or if you
Yeah,
just even look at the not the Colosseum, but the Parthenon,
yeah,
there is a hole in the center of the ceiling which lets the water go down. And I don't remember what the measurements were, but it was like they had to build it up a certain amount to then, it was like one of the very first times that they built this kind of dome shaped roof with a hole in it. And then the floor is all concave. They didn't have computer program. They didn't have Google. They didn't
mhm.
have Google, right?
It's funny you say that. So I when I started employing students, when I was running a roofing crew,
Mm-hmm.
it would have been around 2008, 2009, and kids out of high school generally. And what I found as time went, and particularly as smartphones got into the hands of people, they've made us dumber. And this is kind of the paradox, where people look at they think all this information is there,
Mm-hmm.
therefore I know it. And it's like, no, people knew a lot more
Yes.
in years past. And there was a conversation I had maybe 5 or 6 years ago with an 18-year-old boy I was employing, and he was just baffled. He says, what do you mean there's things that we don't know? I thought we knew everything. And he was it's like, can't you just Google it if you don't know it? Like, I'm like, oh my goodness, what is their school system doing? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Back to the salve. Homesteader Cray says salve, pronounced Salve or salve if you're from the country.
Yeah.
Salve. You got some salve? Yeah. Yeah,
That's
funny.
these days the big thing is everyone wants tallow, right? Beef tallow, and they're putting
Mm-hmm.
that all over their skins. I was thinking like if you have a dog, wouldn't your dog just want to lick you the whole time like that? I
You smell so good. Yeah. Most tallow doesn't have a whole lot of sense. So let me just say hello to Marty from Love the Land Homestead, another
don't
Canadian. She's around in I think I'm pretty Marty, you're also in Ontario, I believe. I'm pretty sure you are. Let me just I do want to kind of open up the door for questions, but let's just also just want to look at my last couple of questions. Do you have a favorite or funny beekeeping story that stands out in your experience?
So probably there were some beekeepers who were moving out of province. So they were moving from Ontario to Nova Scotia, and they said, "Oh, you can come and At this point, I just had one. No, I had two hives. So I had one hive, and then I split it, and they had 20 hives. And so I was, that was my first big expansion. Say, okay, I'll take over these 20 hives. And I assumed that their bees would be friendly like my bees. And so my father-in-law breeds queens, and one of the traits that he breeds for is friendliness. So bees that don't really want to sting you, they're
Mm-hmm.
calm.
Mm-hmm.
And so these bees were a particular type of breed. They were I think they were like a Siberian, more like a Russian strain, but they're known to be very good honey producers, but incredibly aggressive.
Mm.
And so I was moving these bees, and I was actually moving them onto a roof. So I was setting up a rooftop apiary,
Mm-hmm.
and I had a roof, and so I had the forklift was lifting them up to the roof, and the bees were getting out, and I had a bee suit on, like the top end, and usually that's fine, but I ended up counting. I had over 200 stings that evening unloading bees, and at the end of it, I almost passed out. Like it was really bad. I didn't realize at the time. I thought like I just got to grin my teeth and bear it, but these bees just completely slaughtered me, and
Mm-hmm.
I thought like I can't do this. I'm gonna and so I ended up requeening a lot of these hives, and the bees found an opening, and they totally killed me. And so that I still remember that, 'cause people ask like, oh, do you get sting? And typically like I'll get a sting and you don't think anything of it, but when you get like dozens or hundreds of stings at once, and it does happen, then you
Mm-hmm.
feel it, and you're basically you're out of commission for a little while.
Yes, I can imagine. I can imagine. Yeah, and Carol says she heard that aggressive bees make better honey, though. No wonder they guard it with vigilance, and they have the pure stuff. So, wow.
Yeah, that's kind of one of those debates. They say if you want 11 answers, ask 10 different beekeepers, and so that's one of the things that beekeepers like to debate about is, well, do aggressive bees bring more honey? And I really don't know the answer, because I've had hives that were more aggressive and they brought an unbelievable amount of honey, and then I've
Mm-hmm.
had aggressive hives not bring very much honey at all. And so
Mm-hmm.
kind of like correlation isn't necessarily causation, but maybe sometimes it is, and you just have to. That's one of the
Mm-hmm.
mysteries that we need to just accept, right?
Mm-hmm. Kind of the last question is, or no, actually, I can ask you the future of beekeeping with the concerns about pollinator populations. What do you think the future of beekeeping looks like, and how can everyday people help support bees?
So what I would like to say, I think one of the biggest problems with beekeeping today, and this might stir a bit of controversy because people love
Stir it, stir it,
yeah,
stir it.
people love their almonds and they love getting almond milk at Starbucks. But I think one of the biggest problems is the migratory beekeeping industry. And so that's basically people putting all of their entire apiary operations on trucks and moving them from, from one side of the country to the other side of the country, chasing pollination contracts. And so those pollination contracts are important because we need the food to be pollinated. But the issue is it spreads disease, and it spreads problems when there's a new, especially when there's a new disease or an unknown disease. It spreads it all of a sudden within one season. That disease is across the country, continent wide.
Wow.
I would look at Eastern Canada and particularly. So Canada has very different guidelines compared to the US in the transportation of honeybees. And in Eastern Canada, it's strictly forbidden. You'll face prosecution if you enter with honeybee, especially Newfoundland. If you are caught with honeybees, you're in big trouble. And they're very careful that on all the highways and all of the things is you cannot move honeybees, and they don't have problems like
they don't have that mite, right?
Like they don't have the issues like even so there are varroa mites in Prince Edward Island, in New Brunswick, and Nova Scotia, but there's nowhere near the problems that our fellow beekeepers in the US are facing. Like not even close. Like I'm following a lot of American beekeepers, and they're basically losing their operations. Like they're losing, 75, even in some cases 100% of their operations because there's these new diseases, right? And the question is, well, what? And they ask the question, what is the disease? And we don't know what the disease is. We don't know what is causing the killing. But we do know why it keeps happening, and it keeps happening because every season we're moving all the bees in the continent to the same place, and those bees are making each other sick, and then they're all going back home, and and it infects all the hives across the country. And so I think the best practice, and again, it's looking to Eastern Canada, where you talk to a beekeeper in Newfoundland, they have 100% survival. They don't have any of these issues. They don't have to medicate their bees. They don't have, and it's like, what are they doing? They don't allow the movement of honeybees. So, I would like to say that that's the best route because again, and so interesting. So we're about an hour north of Guelph, and at the University of Guelph, they have this program called the Tech Transfer Program. And so they run tests. So they will deliberately cause hives to crash from varroa. So they will make some of their hives very sick for the purpose of research. Okay. So they will say, so we're gonna do this, and we're gonna research how this happens, and we're gonna research and try to understand better. Well, guess what happens to all of the neighboring bee yards within 5 kilometers? They all crash too. And so a friend of mine was, he was unaware that they were holding this research, and he's like, I lost all my bees. He's like, what happened is, well, you're within a few kilometers of the university, and they are doing this program where they're deliberately letting their hives get sick for the purpose of research. And then and then it crashes, and well, because that's it. There's no local bee, right? The bees will fly for miles, and then whatever, if there's a hive that crashes, my bees or whoever's bees will go and take the resources, the honey that's in that hive, and then they'll bring back all the sickness, right? And so it's, what I'd hope that the future of beekeeping would hold would be people would just, like it would be more of a local practice, and they wouldn't, we would stop moving, because even like in Ontario, so most of the pollination contracts in Ontario are in Niagara. And so
Mhm.
I'm about 2 hours north of Niagara. And the bees in Niagara are way worse off than the bees where I am, because there's no pollination contracts local to where I am.
Mhm.
In Niagara, the bees are generally a lot sicker on average. So,
Mm. Sorry, I was bringing up this photo. I didn't know that it was going to just pop right up right away.
yeah,
But
there's a bomb there.
this came from Brenda from Duncan 1900 Homestead, and so she said this was a bee that her daughter saved. I'm just going to go grab so I say that what she said it was. So it's a picture of a bumblebee my daughter saved from a child that had swatted it. But like, that's a pretty big bee. Like that doesn't,
Yeah,
is that?
my son actually he'll catch them and keep them as pets for a little while and then let them go. They won't actually, I don't believe, if that's like a bombus or a bumblebee, I don't believe they'd sting you. So they're just, it's amazing that they can actually fly, because they're just these kind of, they're so big, right?
That's fascinating. Let me just remove that. Bring us back up.
Yeah.
Oh, I think
And they look, what I like about bees is generally they look friendly. Like if you pull up an image of a European hornet, like if you look up a European hornet, they just look like, wow, if the devil could be an insect,
Yeah.
like
It's like,
wasps and hornets just look awful, and they
yes.
are awful, and their whole purpose in life seems to be to make you miserable, attack you.
Yes, sounds very familiar. So then I wanted to know, so yeah, you told us how to support bees. And so from the bottom line, it sounds like the moving of bees is not the way that was intended. And when you were talking about your friend that lost his bees, I was going to ask you, it's like, so they're what do you call it when you basically kill when you're knocking down this, there's a term that you just used and I just left it out of my head. Where you're going to kill them, like they were testing them at the university.
Yeah, so they were allowing the bees to crash, like
crash, right?
Crash.
Yeah, but it was like, my question was like, so is that in a controlled environment?
So there is no controlled environment with honeybees,
because you go. So this bee here has now flown over there, and it's like that is just wrong. That is wrong.
So what, it isn't as much that bees, so honeybees are aware of, like, they have some perception that we can't really conceive. So if you put like a spoon of honey, even a kilometer away or a mile away, give it, on a day, like 10 or 15 minutes, the bees will find it, right? They, like, how they are able to do it. And so if there's another beehive, they look at that as like, that's a lot of honey. And is in certain times a year when there's no nectar, like you're in a dearth, the bees are looking for food. And if they see that there's a hive that is not able to defend its resources, and they're able to just freely enter and take the honey that's in that hive, then when they come back, they're coming back with those mites and those viruses that are very contagious, right?
Wow. So I don't want to keep Jevan on here for too much longer, but do any of you have any questions? Like if you are thinking about, starting your own little beekeeping for your own little, if you have a small farm or if you have a big farm, any questions that people might have, I'd love for you to throw them out there, because I would like to let him go to bed, and because it's late for all you people.
I'm boiling some maple sap on my wood stove. So we're right in the middle of maple syrup season, and so I'll probably stay up another hour or so and finish that boil off, and then get to bed.
So DCB says there is a die-off going on at the moment, and it's not just insects. So I'm not sure
Yeah,
exactly.
it's been a really bad winter for a lot of beekeepers, particularly in the U.S. It hasn't been bad. Like I've got 100 hives, and about 97 have. I've only lost 3, so I've got about a 97% survival rate. So I'm quite happy with that. So
What have you enjoyed the most about being a beekeeper?
I think the number one thing is there's nothing is really being able to bring so much joy. It's just the sheer there's something you do if you're able to do what you enjoy and make a living out of it. I think there's few things that are better than that. And so
Yeah.
when I'm with the bees, in the yard, it doesn't feel like work.
No.
It only ever
No.
feels like work when I'm having to extract the honey, but I could spend all day working with the bees. The honey is the messy part.
Right.
Right?
Right. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
sticky. But it is that thing where if you're doing something that you love, it doesn't feel like work. But also I think with um taking care of bees and just, this whole marvel of what they're creating and what they're doing, and that this, just how God has created them, which is, again, it's fascinating. It's almost that thing where I think of Tom Hanks when he makes fire for the first time. It's like, I have cared for bees. I have bees make honey, and it's just it's so rewarding, and you feel accomplished.
Yeah, and today there was a woman at the market. My wife brought some honey along to sell, and and we have some samples people can taste. But when people taste like the real fresh honey, and you see their expression and the pleasure they get, you feel that kind of sense of like, hey, I'm happy with what I'm doing. I'm able
Mm-hmm.
to improve people's enjoying the food they're eating and provide
Mm-hmm.
something that people enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
um, it's positive that when in construction, especially roofing, like installing roofs, people, whoever wants to install a roof, right? He's like, oh, I have to pay you for this, and that's fine. It's a necessary evil.
Yeah.
But being able to provide a product that people taste and they enjoy, and then when they
Yes.
come back for more, and then you get questions like, I really liked that particular batch of honey. Like what,
Yes.
I don't know what was so special about that one. It's like, can you get me that one again? I'm like, oh,
Mhm.
I don't know what the bees were into, so maybe
Exactly. But pretty much probably almost any fresh honey that they're going to taste, it'll be like, ooh, it's so delicious. I find that even with my sourdough is that people go, your sourdough is the best. And it's like, well, I don't know. But they go, like, they're willing to drive to my house to pay for a loaf of bread, and do it every week
yeah.
or.
So DCB says, so something that I find really, when I'm working with the bees and I'm harvesting honey, and inevitably some honey will drip down in the hive. And what I love watching, and I could just sit there and watch them, is the bees cleaning the honey off of each other. And they're
Oh,
fastidious cleaners. So what you want to see in a hive is bees that keep things really tidy and they're
yep.
very hygienic. And
Hmm.
so the moment you drop even a drop of honey, within a second, there's a bee there cleaning it up.
Yeah. Well,
And
you said if you put it, a few miles away in a teaspoon, they'll go
they'll
find it.
find it here. And so I would say that the buzz of the hive. So something that people are doing. I'd like eventually to set something up. Is they actually have like so imagine like a small bunkie, and you have a bed
Hmm.
in the bunkie, and then underneath the bed is beehives.
Bees. Yes.
Right, so there's bees, and so the idea is you're able to listen, and you're able to, like, there's a metal mesh
Yes.
between, so you're able to hear them and you're able to smell them, and get that kind of sensory experience, and maybe there's a benefit to it. I don't know. I'm not a natural path, but people do this for for benefits. So
I can't remember what it was called. Um, um, because I think we've seen a picture
I
of it.
think I don't know as much about ants because, of course, I don't like when they're when they're fire ants or red ants because they bite.
Yes.
Nothing like, and they're shocking. Like when you get an ant bite and they bite you, that's worse than any bee sting I've ever had. When ants bite, they really hurt.
Yeah, I don't know what they call it, and I was trying to see if I could find the picture. I know Carol. I think Carol has brought one up before and showed like a picture of people. It's on a little bed. It's a type of massage, or not massage, but it's a.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, there's people who kind of do this as like as a little business. They offer this. So I've thought about it. I haven't, maybe one day I'll set this up and see if there's any interest. If people want to tour the garden and then have a nap on top of a beehive, that's
you go, you go $25 for the hour. Just go and have a lay down. It's like, and more than likely, because it's not something that's going on, that's super. Oh, is this what it's called?
Apitherapy, yeah.
Apitherapy? Is that what? Oh, let me just see if that's.
Apitherapy is what it's called, yeah.
I'm going to need to have a copy of that to try to. Or have someone spell it for me.
Yeah, the Latin of the Latin of the bee is Apis mellifera, and so apitherapy was bee therapy.
Okay. I don't think I did it right. Nope. No, I didn't want that. Apitherapy wellness center. Oh, an apitherapy bed. Let's see if I can. Oh, okay, that's weird. Okay, I will show. Okay, I don't know what this one is. It's a honey pack, but let me just go and bring it up because it's weird. This one is. Maybe you or DCBs can tell me about it because it's like, I don't know. Share because
I'd like to offer like tea in the garden. So I'm planning to build like a white picket fence and an arbor, and if we put some picnic tables and have there you go. They're breathing the bee air there.
Okay, that's I've never seen that. Let me just get back to that page so that I can see if I can make it larger for everybody. Can you see that? So what is he breathing?
So the idea is the air inside of the hive would have, the pollen, the honey, the nectar, kind of this aroma. So every aspect of the hive has inside the hive is antiviral and antibiotic. Like bee propolis is a natural antiviral antibiotic. And so the idea is, especially for people with lung conditions, any issue, there's a natural benefit to getting those, those enzymes or whatever you'd call them that exist in the beehive, breathing those in. So that's the theory. And, obviously people are doing it. So, it likely helps some people.
Yeah. But like, so my little question about that is that, not that we would, if you guys would necessarily, you or DC would know, because it's like, okay, so I'm inhaling, but I hope that the exhale is not going back into the.
Usually those would have a valve, and so it would just be one way. So if you breathe in, the valve would open, and if you breathe out, the valve would be closed. So it would only be able to take air one direction.
Yeah. So here is somebody. It's got a little.
Looks like a chicken coop.
It does. The door.
Maybe Maureen, maybe that's a business. Have a chicken coop therapy. Put a bed in with your chickens, and people can maybe be chicken poop therapy or something.
Yeah, that's right. Oh my goodness.
A new thing.
Yeah. This one here. It is a thing that calls it a spa. Oh, here's one where, like, let's do this one. Share this tab instead and make it bigger. So this is a little bit like a coffin.
It looks a little bit like a coffin, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, come lay down and we'll put this over top of you.
Come we're gonna bury you now.
You go, oh my goodness! But it looks like it's just right underneath is where the bees would be. The bees would be. Let me go back, and because I think there was another one that I wanted to look at that. It's like it is the spa, like a spa bed that you would. I'll do this one here. Oh, these bees are. I don't know if these bees are under. Share this tab. Let's make it bigger. Share this tab. So I think the bees are just up at the head. I don't know if this person is doing the breathing of it, but it looks like the bees are up at the top of the head. But yeah, that is very, very interesting. Very cool. So I'll stop sharing and I will bring us back up. There we are. Yeah, I think that's oh, he said they were also under the bed. Yeah, that's what I thought. It was the one that Carol had brought was like, you could see that, the bees were underneath. And so it's the whatever the hurts that they're making, the sound that they make is supposed to be, healing and that. So
yeah, a lot there's I've been reading a little bit about frequency. The frequency of bees, and there's probably a lot there than we really have no idea, right?
Yeah, I hadn't. Yeah, same here. DCBs hadn't seen the ones with the mask. I do I'm not into too much woo, but I do as a musician. It's I think I listened to 520. I'm not going to say the amount of hertz. I can't I can't remember what it is, but I do find when I have that playing, and it's just a kind of almost like a white noise. It does have some other instruments going with it, but it's just this long, and I find that it puts me to sleep quickly and brings a lot of calm and peace. And I can actually have it up pretty loud, where sometimes I have to have things pretty quiet, so I have to strain to hear it. So it's and that'll help me to fall asleep. But I do feel different and better when I am.
Have you ever tried a sensory deprivation room?
No.
They set these up. So generally you'd be in a bath,
Yep.
like warm bath with salt, and everything is black and it's dead quiet. And it's said that you've reached sensory deprivation and focus when you can hear your heart beating.
I don't know if I wanted to try one of those. I don't know if I could handle it because I think I kind of think I could, just because I can't wear a mask when I sleep, an eye mask, because if I wake up and you open your eyes, I forget that the mask is on, and it's all of a sudden. So that's where I kind of go, if I'm awake, and I'm in this sensory deprivation, I think because I'm aware of it, I think I would probably be okay. But there is a part of me that goes, I don't know.
Yeah.
So yeah, we call them, we have floats. We do a float. That's what we get. So yeah. So some studies show that the tone can lower the blood pressure. So it's kind of cool. So what is this? Storm says, I don't know what the chamber. You can also say it again.
The anechoic chamber, I guess. Yeah.
Oh, you can also hear the slight hum of your nervous system. That would be very cool.
Yep.
The bed beds make similar situations as the sensory tanks. The tone and the smells help create that relaxed state. Yeah, that's very cool. Anyway, I do not want to keep you any longer, sir. Thank you so very much.
Thank you
for sharing with us about your life in bees and the flowers. And I'm hoping that, everybody has learned a little bit of something. And for those of you that are new to a bee for all seasons, I hope that you will go and take the time to, just want to put that banner up because I know that Sharon has been, oh, there it is. And there it is. Did I? Yes, I did. To make sure that you go and you support Jevan's channel, which is he's also Rob
Yeah,
or Jevan.
I've a little bit about my channel. So I started it about a year and a half ago now. Not really with any expectations, but realizing if we're going to sell, try to build a business, then having an online presence is helpful. And even today, so my wife sold, I think over 100 different tubers, like to different people. And a lot of people asked, like, I don't know what do I do with this? I'm buying this tuber because I see the picture of this flower. It's a beautiful flower, but I don't know how to plant this. So I've kind of been struggling, like, well, what am I doing? Am I beekeeping? Am I gardening? I'm doing some contracting. And so, I'm hoping to do, I might actually end up, over time, make a channel that's more dedicated to gardening because we're finding as we're meeting more people, but who knows what the future holds. We'll see.
Right.
Now,
Well, what you can do is someone says, I don't know what to do with this. Oh, well, you know what? If you go to a Bee for All Seasons,
yeah,
my husband will show you how to do it.
It's kind of been funny. Like I'm trying to explain to people like what I do. A fellow I was talking to, he's like, you're doing this gardening, like you don't look like a hippie. Are you Dutch? I'm like, well, I'm not Dutch, but I totally understand why you think I'm Dutch.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Homestead Aquarius says she's a direct to YouTuber. Waka waka waka. Because she was selling tubers.
Yeah,
and she's your director to your YouTube.
Right. I got it. That's good.
Yeah. It was like, oh, that's good. Homestead Aquarius is good at those. He can come up with very, very quick.
Yeah. Well, send me a message. I'll try to follow some of you guys, and hopefully, once the garden's in bloom and things are moving along, we can come back and keep you updated. And
yes,
like to see what some of you guys are up to. So
yeah. So thank you so much,
thank
Jevan,
you
for coming and hanging out with me, and for spending this evening and letting us get to know you and your channel a little bit more and all about bees. So anyway, I am going to end this stream here. So we will say goodnight. And thank you so much, of course, Sharon, for sharing everybody out, and for all of you for hanging out with us in the chat. So good night. God bless. Have a good rest of your weekend.